The boxing gym was louder than usual that evening. Heavy bags slammed like thunder. Sweat hit the floor in steady drops, and loud music pumped through old speakers bolted to the walls. Fighters moved with confidence, some shadowboxing in front of mirrors, others wrapping their hands while laughing loudly. At the center of it all stood Coach Ryan, broad shoulders, sharp voice, and an ego even bigger than his reputation. Coach Ryan loved attention. He paced the gym like a king inspecting his territory, correcting fighters with sarcasm instead of guidance. Faster. Is that a punch or a love tap? Laughter followed his every insult. To him, fear meant respect. Then the door opened. No dramatic entrance. No crowd reaction, just a quiet creak. A man stepped inside wearing a plain gray hoodie, old training shoes, and calm eyes that seemed completely untouched by the chaos around him. He didn't look like a fighter. He didn't look important. He simply looked peaceful. He watched. Coach Ryan noticed him almost instantly. New faces always caught his eye, especially ones that didn't look impressive. "Hey," the coach shouted across the gym. "You lost, old man. Yoga classes down the street." Some fighters chuckled, others turned to look. The man walked closer. Unbothered, hands relaxed at his sides. "I was told this was a place that respected discipline," he said calmly. That was enough. Coach Ryan burst out laughing. "Discipline?" He pointed at the man's clothes. "You come dressed like that and talk about discipline. This is a boxing gym, not a movie set." More laughter echoed off the walls. One student whispered, "Who does this guy think he is?" The man didn't respond. He simply stood there, eyes scanning the room, not judging, not challenging, just observing. Coach Ryan stepped closer, face inches away. "Let me guess," he said mockingly. "You're one of those old guys who watch too many action movies and thinks he can still fight." The man finally smiled. Not an angry smile, not an offended one, a calm, knowing smile. "I'm just here to train," he said. That smile irritated the coach more than any insult ever could. "Oh, this just got interesting," Coach Ryan said loudly, clapping his hands. "Every own look, Grandpa here wants to train." The gym filled with laughter again. What they didn't know, what no one in that room understood, was that the quiet man standing in front of them wasn't here to prove anything. And in just a few seconds, that laughter would disappear completely. The laughter slowly faded, but the tension didn't. It hung in the air like sweat and chalk dust, thick and uncomfortable. The man in the gray hoodie didn't move. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. That alone confused a few of the fighters. In this gym, everyone reacted, either with anger or fear. Silence was rare. Coach Ryan circled him like a predator who believed the hunt was already over. "So," the coach said, folding his arms, "you want to train?" He dragged the word out, turning it into a joke. "We don't do charity workouts here. You got experience? Or are you just here to tell stories from the good old days?" The man met his eyes. "Experience isn't something you advertise," he replied calmly. "It shows when needed." That answer earned a fresh wave of smirks. A young boxer near the bags whispered. "He talks like some movie monk," another replied. "Yeah, probably watched too much Chuck Norris growing up." The irony went unnoticed. Coach Ryan waved toward the ring. "This isn't a museum," he said loudly. "People come here to build real fighters, not to babysit retired fans." He leaned in again. "How old are you anyway? 60, 70? The man didn't answer. Instead, he slowly unzipped his hoodie and placed it neatly on a bench. Underneath, he wore a simple black training shirt. No logos, no sponsors, no ego. His movements were controlled, deliberate, almost ceremonial. A few fighters stopped what they were doing to watch more closely. Coach Ryan noticed that shift. He didn't like it. "Hey, don't get comfortable," the coach snapped. "You step into my gym, you follow my rules. And rule number 1, respect is earned." The man nodded. "I agree." That response again, calm, grounded, only fueled the coach's arrogance. He clapped his hands loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "All right, listen up," Coach Ryan shouted. "This gentleman wants to train. Let's give him a proper welcome." He gestured toward a heavy bag. "Go on. Show us something." The man walked toward the bag, standing in front of it without touching it. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, breathing slow and steady. The gym grew quieter, not because of fear, but curiosity. Then Coach Ryan laughed. "What is this meditation?" he mocked. "You planning to knock it out with your mind?" The man opened his eyes. "A fighter who can't control his breath can't control a fight," he said. That line made one of the older trainers near the wall stiffen. He frowned, studying the man's stance. Something about it felt familiar. Coach Ryan didn't notice. He was too busy enjoying the crowd. "You hear that?" he said to his students. "He's here to teach us philosophy." He shook his head. "Tell you what, old man. Why don't you just admit you're out of your depth before you embarrass yourself?" The man turned slightly, meeting his gaze once more. His voice remained calm, but there was weight behind it now. "Embarrassment comes from pride," he said, "not from effort." That was the moment the room shifted. The music had stopped. The bags were still. Every eye was locked on the two men standing only feet apart, one loud and confident, the other silent and steady. Coach Ryan smirked, stepping closer. "All right," he said. "Let's see how far that calm takes you." He raised his hand, signaling someone to start the timer. What no one realized was that this wasn't a challenge. It was an invitation to learn. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen arrogance underestimate real strength? And where are you watching from? Respect to those who stay humble under pressure. Coach Ryan rolled his shoulders and stepped back. A confident grin stretched across his face. To him, this wasn't a test. It was entertainment. He glanced around the gym, making sure everyone was watching, feeding off the attention like fuel. "All right," he said loudly. "You want to train? Let's do this the right way." He pointed toward the ring. 3 minutes. No excuses. A few students exchanged excited looks. Someone lifted a phone to record. Moments like this were rare, and embarrassment, especially public embarrassment, was always good entertainment in this gym. The man in the black training shirt nodded once and walked toward the ring. His steps were light, measured, almost silent. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate either. Coach Ryan followed, bouncing slightly on his toes, fists already wrapped, confidence overflowing. "Don't worry," he said mockingly. "I'll go easy on you. I don't want to break a hip." Laughter rippled through the room. Inside the ring, the ropes creaked as both men stepped in. Coach Ryan stretched his neck dramatically, cracking it side to side. He turned to the students. "Watch closely," he said. "This is how you deal with overconfidence." The man said nothing. He simply raised his hands. Not in a tight boxing guard, but relaxed, open, balanced. His posture was unfamiliar but solid. One of the older trainers near the wall leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "That stance," he murmured. The bell rang. Coach Ryan wasted no time. He lunged forward with a quick jab, sharp and fast, aimed more to intimidate than to connect. The man shifted slightly, barely a step, letting the punch slice through empty air. The gym reacted with a few surprised murmurs. Coach Ryan smirked. "Lucky dodge," he said, throwing another punch, then another. A small combination, crisp and aggressive again. The man moved. Not backward, not panicked, just enough. His feet glided across the mat, calm and precise. No wasted motion, no heavy breathing. That annoyed the coach. "Stop dancing." Coach Ryan barked, swinging harder now. A hook flew toward the man's head. In one smooth motion, the man stepped inside the arc of the punch, gently redirecting the arm and tapping the coach's shoulder with 2 fingers. The touch was light, but it stopped the coach cold. Coach Ryan blinked, confused. What was that? Someone whispered. The man stepped back, hands still open. "You're strong," he said quietly, "but you're tense." The coach's face flushed red. "You think you're teaching me now?" he snapped, charging forward with raw force. Punches came fast, fueled by ego. The crowd leaned in, expecting impact. But impact never came. The man moved through the strikes like water flowing around rocks. A pivot here. A slight turn there. Each movement placed him just out of reach. Then, without warning, he stepped forward. One movement. Not flashy, not violent. He caught the coach's wrist, turned his body, and guided the momentum away. In the same breath, he placed a firm palm against the coach's chest and pushed. Not hard, but perfectly timed. Coach Ryan stumbled backward. The ropes caught him, but his legs didn't. He fell, landing hard on the mat, staring up at the ceiling in disbelief silence. No laughter, no cheering. The bell echoed faintly as the timer continued, but no one moved. Coach Ryan sat up slowly, chest rising fast, eyes wide. He hadn't been hurt. That made it worse. You got lucky," he muttered, scrambling to his feet. The man tilted his head slightly. "Luck doesn't repeat," he said. That line sent a chill through the room. The coach attacked again, anger overriding technique. A wild hook, followed by a desperate cross. This time, the man didn't retreat. He stepped in close, closing the distance so quickly it felt like he had vanished and reappeared. In one controlled sequence, he blocked, trapped, and turned. The coach found himself face down against the ropes, arm gently but firmly locked behind his back. He couldn't move. The man leaned in slightly. "Strength without control becomes weakness," he said softly. Coach Ryan froze. He felt it now, not pain, but reality. The gym was completely silent. Phones lowered, mouths hung open. The man released the hold and stepped back immediately, giving space, giving dignity. He bowed his head slightly, not in victory but respect. The bell rang again. No one clapped. No one spoke. Coach Ryan stood there, breathing hard, staring at the man in front of him like he was seeing him for the first time. His ego searched for words, excuses, anything. But none came. Because in less than a minute, the truth had become clear. This wasn't a random old man, and whatever came next, the gym would never forget it. For several long seconds after the bell rang, no one in the gym moved. The echo of it still seemed to hang in the air, vibrating softly against the walls, but the people inside felt frozen in place. The usual noise, music, shouting, laughter, was gone, as if someone had pressed mute on the entire room. Coach Ryan stood near the ropes, shoulders rising and falling as he tried to slow his breathing. His face burned hotter than his muscles. He had been knocked down without being struck, overpowered without being hurt. That confused him more than pain ever could. Across from him, the man stood calmly, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady. There was no triumph in his posture, no smirk, no need to prove anything further. One of the students broke the silence with a nervous laugh that quickly died in his throat. Another lowered his phone, realizing he had just recorded something he didn't fully understand. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. "He didn't even hit him," another replied quietly. The older trainer near the wall stepped forward slowly. He had been in gyms his entire life, had seen champions rise and fall, had felt the difference between showmanship and mastery. His eyes never left the quiet man in the ring. "That wasn't boxing," he murmured. "That was control." Coach Ryan cleared his throat and forced a laugh, trying to reclaim the room. All right," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Beginner's luck. Everyone gets a good moment." But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. The man looked at him, not with judgment, but with something closer to concern. "You don't need to be angry," he said gently. "Anger clouds awareness." That kindness stung more than any insult. Coach Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the older trainer spoke louder now. "Coach," he said, eyes still fixed on the man. "Where did you learn that movement?" The man turned toward him, from teachers who valued humility over applause. The trainer's eyes widened slightly. "I've seen that stance before," he said slowly. "Long time ago, in seminars, in dojos that didn't advertise." A few students exchanged confused looks. Coach Ryan snapped. "You're saying this guy's some kind of legend now?" The trainer didn't answer right away. He walked closer to the ring, studying the man's foot placement, the way he shifted his weight without effort. "Legends don't announce themselves," he said finally. "They let time speak." The room felt heavier after that. Coach Ryan swallowed, suddenly aware that the balance of power had shifted. He had always been the loudest voice, the unquestioned authority. Now, no one was looking at him. All eyes were on the quiet man. The man stepped out of the ring and picked up his hoodie, folding it neatly. "I didn't come here to embarrass you," he said. "I came to train." Coach Ryan scoffed weakly. Train with who? You just showed up uninvited. The man met his gaze. I was invited by the idea that this was a place of discipline. That word again, discipline. It echoed in Coach Ryan's mind, clashing against everything he believed strength was supposed to be. One of the younger fighters stepped forward, voice unsure. Sir, can you show us that movement again? Coach Ryan turned sharply. Get back to work. But the command fell flat. The students hesitated, torn between habit and curiosity. The man raised a hand slightly, calming the room. Not now, he said kindly. Learning requires readiness. He began walking toward the exit. Every step he took seemed to pull the room further into silence. No one tried to stop him. At the door, he paused. You have talent, he said, looking back at Coach Ryan. But talent grows best in respect. Then he left. The door closed softly behind him. But the impact was enormous. Coach Ryan stood alone in the center of the gym, surrounded by students who no longer saw him the same way. The laughter was gone. The fear was gone. All that remained was a question none of them were ready to answer yet. Who was that man? And why did it feel like they had just witnessed something far bigger than a sparring match? Outside, unseen by those inside, a black SUV rolled slowly to the curb. And in that moment, the silence inside the gym was only the beginning. The gym door hadn't fully closed before a low, steady engine sound cut through the quiet. Outside, the black SUV came to a smooth stop, its tinted windows reflecting the fading afternoon light. Inside the gym, a few students glanced toward the entrance, sensing that whatever had just happened wasn't over yet. Coach Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead, forcing himself to breathe normally. All right, he said stiffly, clapping his hands once. Break's over. Back to work. No one moved. Before he could bark another command. The gym door opened again. This time, 3 men stepped inside. Sharp suits, polished shoes, calm confidence. They didn't look like fighters, but they carried themselves with the kind of authority that didn't need volume. The music was still off. The silence returned instantly. One of them scanned the room and smiled. We're looking for Mr. Norris. The name landed like a punch. A murmur rippled through the students. Did he say Norris? As in Chuck Norris? Coach Ryan frowned. You got the wrong place, he said quickly. There's no... Actually, the older trainer interrupted, his voice steady but serious. He was just here. All 3 men turned toward him at once. Which way did he go? One of them asked. The trainer pointed toward the door. Out there. Without hesitation, one of the men stepped back outside and called out, Sir, Mr. Norris. A moment later, the quiet man returned. He stepped inside slowly, the same calm presence as before. The suit straightened instantly. Mr. Norris. The tallest of them said respectfully, extending his hand. We're sorry we're late, traffic. The man shook his hand politely. No problem, he replied. The room froze. Coach Ryan's face drained of color. Students stared, eyes wide, pieces clicking together in their minds. The calm, the control, the discipline, the unmistakable presence. That's him, someone whispered. Coach Ryan stepped forward, voice shaky. Wait. Hold on, you mean Chuck Norris? Chuck Norris nodded slightly. Yes. The name alone carried weight. Decades of stories, championships, films, legends, spoken and unspoken. Suddenly, the way he had moved made sense. The restraint, the precision, the respect. Coach Ryan felt his knees weaken. I didn't know, he stammered. If I had known who you were, Chuck Norris raised a hand gently. That's exactly the point, he said calmly. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. The words hit harder than any punch. One of the suited men cleared his throat. Mr. Norris, we're here regarding the gym partnership you were asked to observe. Observe? Coach Ryan echoed faintly. Chuck Norris turned toward him. I was invited to see how this place was run, how fighters were treated, how discipline was taught. Coach Ryan's mouth went dry. You see, Chuck continued, technique can be taught, strength can be built, but character is revealed under pressure. He looked around the room, then back at the coach. Today everyone learned something. The older trainer lowered his head respectfully. Coach Ryan swallowed hard and suddenly dropped to one knee. Mr. Norris, I'm sorry. I let my ego lead. I disrespected you. Chuck Norris didn't step back. He didn't smile. He simply waited until the coach looked up. Stand, he said. Coach Ryan obeyed. Apologies matter, Chuck said, but change matters more. The students watched in complete silence. This wasn't humiliation. It was accountability. Chuck Norris turned to the older trainer. You recognized discipline when you saw it. Yes, sir. From today, Chuck said, you'll help guide the training here, balance the noise with knowledge. The trainer's eyes widened. It would be an honor. Coach Ryan looked on, stunned, not fired, but no longer untouchable. Chuck Norris picked up his hoodie once more. I don't need to stay, he said. The lesson has already landed. He turned toward the door. Before he left, he paused and spoke one final time, his voice calm but carrying through the entire gym. True fighters don't seek dominance, he said. They seek mastery. Then he walked out. The door closed. No one spoke. The gym was silent, not from fear this time, but respect. Do you think Coach Ryan deserved forgiveness, or should the lesson have gone further? Comment below, forgive or teach a lesson, and tell me where you're watching from. The gym stayed silent long after Chuck Norris had walked out. It wasn't the awkward kind of silence that begged to be broken. It was heavier, reflective. The kind that forces people to sit with their own thoughts. Even the heavy bags seemed to hang still, as if the room itself was processing what had just happened. Coach Ryan stood near the center of the floor, hands resting on his hips, staring at the closed door. For the first time since anyone could remember, he didn't know what to say. His authority had always come from volume, from intimidation, from never being questioned. Now, none of that worked. He slowly turned around. Every pair of eyes was on him. Not with fear, not with mockery, but with expectation. The older trainer stepped forward calmly. Let's take 5, he said gently. Everyone hydrate. No one argued. The students dispersed quietly, whispering among themselves, replaying every moment in their heads. Some felt embarrassed for laughing earlier. Others felt inspired. A few felt both. Coach Ryan watched them go, realizing something uncomfortable but necessary. They hadn't followed him out of habit. They had followed noise, and noise had just been replaced by substance. The older trainer approached him. You okay? He asked. Coach Ryan nodded, though his eyes betrayed him. I've trained fighters for years, he said quietly. I thought strength meant control over others. The trainer shook his head slightly. Strength starts with control over yourself. Coach Ryan exhaled slowly, the tension draining from his shoulders. When he spoke, it wasn't about winning, he said. It felt like he was holding up a mirror. That's what real masters do, the trainer replied. They don't humiliate, they reveal. Across the room, a few students watched the exchange closely. One of them, a young boxer who had joined the gym only weeks ago, stepped forward hesitantly. Coach, he said, voice unsure. Can you show us that drill again? The one about breathing before punches? Coach Ryan looked at him, surprised. Then he nodded. Yeah, he said softly. I can. He walked toward the ring, not with his usual swagger, but with intention. Listen up, he said, not shouting this time. What you saw today wasn't about age or fame, it was about discipline. The students gathered closer. I pushed you hard, Coach Ryan continued, but I forgot something important. Pressure without respect breaks people. He paused, choosing his words carefully. From today on, this gym changes. The older trainer smiled faintly. Coach Ryan demonstrated a simple movement stance, breath, balance. No theatrics, no insults, just clarity. The students followed along, focused, silent, absorbing every detail. For the first time, learning felt different. Minutes later, outside the gym, Chuck Norris stood beside the SUV as one of the suited men opened the door for him. You didn't have to step in, the man said. You could have shut the place down. Chuck Norris shook his head. That wouldn't teach anything. He glanced back at the gym windows, where silhouettes moved slowly, deliberately. Ego collapses loudly, he continued. Growth happens quietly. The man nodded, understanding. As the SUV pulled away, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the street. Chuck Norris sat back, hands resting calmly on his knees. His work there was done. Not because he had dominated, but because he had planted something far more powerful. Back inside the gym, Coach Ryan finished the session early. "Good work today," he told the students. "Get some rest." They thanked him, genuinely. As the gym emptied, he sat alone on the bench, staring at the mat where he had fallen earlier. Instead of anger, he felt gratitude. Not for the loss, but for the lesson, he whispered to himself. Real strength doesn't announce itself. And for the first time in a long while, he understood exactly what that meant. The gym felt different the next morning. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, catching dust in the air as it floated quietly above the mats. There was no loud music, no shouting, no sharp insults cutting through the room. Instead, there was focused breath, intent. Coach Ryan arrived early, unlocking the doors in silence. He stood for a moment, taking in the space he had ruled for years. The memories of the previous day replayed in his mind, not the fall, not the embarrassment, but the calm voice that had dismantled his ego without raising its own. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. Those words stayed with him. As students began to arrive, their energy was different too. They greeted each other with nods instead of noise. Gloves were wrapped carefully, movements were intentional. Something had shifted, something invisible but powerful. The older trainer joined Coach Ryan near the ring. "You see it too," he said. Coach Ryan nodded. "Yeah," he replied. "Feels like a real gym now." Training began with silence. No timers, no shouting. Just stance, balance, breath. Fighters moved slower but sharper, stronger but calmer. And for the first time, Coach Ryan watched instead of dominating. A young fighter paused mid-drill. "Coach," he asked, "do you really think being calm makes you stronger?" Coach Ryan considered the question carefully. "Calm doesn't make you weaker," he said. "It makes you accurate." The student nodded, understanding. Hours later, as the session ended, Coach Ryan gathered everyone together. "Yesterday," he began, "we all learned something. Not from losing or winning, but from humility." He looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. It's easy to respect power when it's loud. It's harder to respect it when it's quiet, but that's where real strength lives. No one interrupted. "Some of you want titles, some want fame. Some just want to be better than you were yesterday," he continued. "Whatever your reason, remember this. Skill without respect is just noise." The students nodded, absorbing every word. Outside, the city moved as usual. Cars, voices, distractions, but inside that gym, something permanent had taken root. And far away, Chuck Norris continued his day like any other. No headlines, no interviews, no announcements. He didn't need recognition for a lesson well delivered. True impact doesn't chase applause. Because real power doesn't need an audience. It shows up quietly, corrects what's broken, and leaves without asking to be remembered. The gym would never forget that day. Not because of who walked in, but because of how they walked out. Stronger, quieter, better. And that is the truth about respect. It isn't reserved for champions, celebrities, or names people recognize. It's owed to everyone, especially when you think they don't matter. Because the person you underestimate today might be the one who teaches you the most tomorrow. And sometimes, the greatest lesson doesn't come with a punch. It comes with restraint. Type respect if you believe humility is the strongest form of power. And tell me, where are you watching from? I want to thank every real one personally.